Next News. Breaking news.
Tonight, the most important Ebola story is not just the virus, it's the system. Inside Congo, reports describe dead patients lying near the living, children bleeding in crowded wards, families bringing their own water, and test delays so bad doctors cannot quickly separate confirmed cases from suspected ones. Now Brazil is monitoring travelers. Europe is moving medical personnel, and global health officials are warning this could accelerate fast if containment slips. After COVID, the public does not blindly trust any institution anymore. And maybe that is exactly why this moment matters so much. So here's the question. Is the world watching an outbreak or the failure of the response machine itself? You see, here's where the story gets serious. One World Health Organization official is warning that this Bundibugyo Ebola strain has shown fatality rates between 30 and 50% in previous outbreaks. Now that's not media hype. That is up to 5 out of 10 confirmed patients. But even that number is not the biggest red flag tonight. The real danger is what happens when testing lags, isolation breaks down, logistics fail, and treatment centers start operating beyond capacity. And according to reporting from inside one hospital, one ward held a dead Ebola patient, a sick adult, and a 5-year-old with uncontrolled nosebleeds in the same confined space. No food from the hospital, families bringing water, results delayed. Now that's not a containment system in control, that's a warning sign. And in the post-COVID era, Americans are right to ask the hard questions. Can international health agencies still do the basics? Can they isolate, trace, and treat before panic outruns facts? Because if they cannot, geographic containment becomes a talking point and not a reality. And while the world is being reminded how fragile systems can be, smart Americans are looking for assets that hold value when institutions fail to inspire confidence. Now, if you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who recognized oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history. And today, a similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. Silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the massive tech build-out that's happening right now. Noble Gold Investments makes it simple to learn how silver can fit into your portfolio. Visit nextnewsgold.com, and depending on the qualifying amount, you could receive a 1/10 ounce gold coin. That's nextnewsgold.com before this window gets harder to ignore. Now back to the outbreak story, because what we're seeing next is exactly why trust has become the central battle. See, here's the twist the corporate media does not know how to handle. The outbreak fear is rising at the exact same time public trust is collapsing. Viewers are watching CNN crews report from the Congo and asking a basic question. If this is so serious, why are there no masks in sight? Others are noticing that CEPI, co-founded by Bill Gates, funded vaccine work on the same Ebola strain just months before this outbreak intensified. Fair question or not, that is the environment now. Every health emergency comes with a second emergency, credibility. That changes everything as we move onto the evidence we're about to present. So, this tick story, the Ebola story, the alpha-gal story, they all share a common thread. Why does Bill Gates seem to be popping up around every single corner? Listen to this.
Bill Gates funded research into genetically engineered ticks. The same year, alpha-gal cases surged 40%. A disease that makes you allergic to real meat is now at 450,000 cases and rising.
We have been eating meat for thousands of years. We have ticks for thousands of years. What have changed? What is the common denominator here that we have to think about it? As we know, the foundation of Bill and Melinda Gates, they have been investing large amounts of money in a lot of research when it comes to ticks and mosquitoes. And there is this new trend that they want to diminish gas emissions through cows and cattle. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are some people interested in trying to diminish meat consumption.
So, how does that even work, right? So what changed? He's asking the question the corporate media won't touch. Why are alpha-gal cases exploding now? RFK Jr. says HHS is fast-tracking a treatment he believes could actually prevent and maybe cure this meat allergy nightmare. We have this. RFK Jr. says he's working to find a cure for alpha-gal, the tick disease that can make you allergic to red meat for life. Listen.
One of the tick-borne disease besides Lyme that is of great concern to the American people, an increasing concern is alpha-gal. And alpha-gal, which is another science fiction nightmare. You get one bite from a Lone Star tick and you could have a lifetime allergy to red meat. And I was surprised to learn on my trip to visit the Wampanoag for the Indian Health Services this fall that 50% of the population of Martha's Vineyard now has alpha-gal, including most members of the tribe. And so by controlling the breeding on the deer, we also can control alpha-gal as well. We're also working on medicines that can prevent alpha-gal and that have the potential, the promise of actually curing it. And one of those medicines is almost ready. We're fast-tracking it. And then we're doing the studies over the next 2 years to see if we can actually reverse this devastating disease.
So it's good to see RFK Jr. on the case here. So at least somebody in Washington is admitting the problem exists, but now the story gets darker. The latest Ebola outbreak in Congo is raising major questions about Gates-linked vaccine funding and an NIH scientist caught with pathogen samples. I found this original post. I converted it to English for your benefit. DRC's Ebola outbreak is raising questions. Months earlier, Gates Foundation co-founded CEPI backed Oxford Moderna vaccine work, including the Bundibugyo strain.
Yet, the timing of the recent outbreak with the so-called Bundibugyo strain in the Democratic Republic of the Congo raises questions. Particularly striking here is once again a vaccine coincidence, which one really shouldn't simply ignore. 4 months ago, CEPI, which is the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, co-founded by Bill Gates, provided. The pharmaceutical company Moderna and Oxford University received $26.7 million in order to develop mRNA and a viral vector. Vaccines against the Bundibugyo strain of the Ebola virus, which is exactly the strain that is also causing the current outbreak. That hardly seems like a coincidence. And then there is the case of the NIH Ebola expert who was caught smuggling pathogens out of the Congo. Vincent Munster is an Ebola expert at the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and he was also a collaborator in the field of COVID-19 gain-of-function research. He regularly conducts field studies in the Congo. Shortly before the Ebola outbreak, Munster was detained upon his return from the Congo with undeclared pathogens at a U.S. airport. He had traveled with NIH scientist Claude Kwei-Yinda to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and airport security reportedly discovered samples of pathogens that had been collected from patients. It was reported that inside of his luggage, there were samples containing monkeypox, a pathogen that the U.S. Department of Health, meaning the Human Health Services, because of its potential danger to public safety, is officially classified as a so-called select agent. Monster, who supposedly has a close relationship with Fauci and Yinda, lacked the required legal authorizations to transport or import these specific pathogens into the United States. Since Munster's lab is intensively involved with Ebola and he conducts field studies in the Congo where he works with high-risk viruses, it naturally raises the question whether, among the samples, there might not also have been some containing Ebola viruses.
Yeah. Have you guys seen that movie, 12 Monkeys? Getting some serious 12 Monkey vibes from this report. But that's exactly why the trust is gone. Too many coincidences, too many swamp operators, too many missing answers. While Ebola alarms grow, Pfizer rolling out a new Lyme vaccine tied to the same tick bite fear campaign. Right on cue, Pfizer has a new safe and effective Lyme disease vaccine designed to prevent infections from tick bites, according to Dr. Mark Siegel. So first alpha-gal, now a Lyme shot from Pfizer. Americans are right to ask who's cashing in on all this. Meanwhile, on the ground in Congo, the real scandal's collapsing. Ebola response or even confirming cases that can't be properly separated from the sick. A journalist walking inside an active Ebola ward in DRC found a confirmed death, a sick adult, 5-year-old with uncontrolled nosebleeds, all sharing the same confined space. No food for patients, families bringing their own water. Test results take so long, doctors can't even separate confirmed cases from suspected ones. Check this out, guys.
We've arranged with the medics here at the Mongolu Hospital to visit one of the wards where suspected Ebola patients are being treated.
When we walked into this Ebola ward, it was very striking that in this confined space you had a grown man being treated, you had this young child who just arrived, and you had a person who had died of Ebola lying in that same space. It's very difficult to separate the people who are potential Ebola victims with people who actually are confirmed to have it, because no results had come back from the blood test that they had sent. There was a 5-year-old boy, and his father, he was a motorcycle taxi driver in the town. 5 days ago, his son started getting sick. In fact, he had been sent home from school with a fever. They treated him at home for 2 or 3 days. And then last night, his son started bleeding from his nose uncontrollably. The hospital doesn't even have the resources to feed patients. People's relatives have to come to the Ebola ward just to bring them bottles of water and food. I was shown around by a 32-year-old Congolese doctor who was, absolutely frustrated by the lack of resources. He said he just couldn't understand how it had taken so long to identify this outbreak. He couldn't understand how it had taken the Congolese government and, in fact, the world more broadly so long to mobilize the resources. Initially, I didn't actually consider going into this ward, but we had been in the hospital for 2-3 days at that point. We had gotten to know the medical staff. We'd spent days reporting around the virus, people who either were fearful of getting it or who were angry over people who had died. But at the end of the day, this is really about the people who are in those wards fighting for their lives.
So what you just saw wasn't a virus problem alone. Total system failure. Next to chaos gets even more serious as reports say an Italian surgeon was evacuated over possible Ebola exposure. Working at a Salama hospital, was wrapped alive yesterday, boarded a plane to Bordeaux, France.
Mavyo zinekala kaya hivi wanaenda mystifie ase mtu anakufa dunia kuko na muyembe atatuandika sema mama person
oxygéné. Oui. Et il a un oxygène qui est au coma. Et elle va respirer avec l'oxygène jusqu'à la fin. Est-ce qu'il saura les transporter seul? Non, mais...
So when medical workers are being flown out in protective transports, not some abstract overseas headline anymore. Next, we have a World Health Organization official laying out the number that should get everyone's attention fast. The strain could kill up to half the people it infects. Brian Allen reports. A World Health Organization official warns the Ebola strain involved could have a fatality rate as high as 50%. Up to half the infected people could die based on previous outbreaks.
Official with the agency's Health Emergencies Program warned that based on previous outbreaks of the specific Ebola strain, the fatality rate could go up as much as 50%.
From previous outbreak of Bundibugyo virus disease, the lethality, that is the number of people who died among people who were confirmed for the infection, ranges between 30 to 50%. It's huge. It means like up to 5 out of 10 people are likely to die.
So 30 to 50%, that's not media spin. That's a deadly virus and a real risk of incompetence if it spreads. Now watch how fast this moves beyond Africa, with Brazil monitoring travelers and the U.S. scrambling to screen arrivals at just 4 airports. This is Good Morning America.
Good morning, George. As the U.S. works feverishly to try and keep Ebola away from its shores, officials are awaiting test results later today to see if this disease has now reached South America.
This morning, as the concerns over the spread of Ebola rise, Brazil's health authority announced it's now monitoring 2 separate patients with symptoms and travel history. One patient recently returning from the Democratic Republic of Congo and the other from Uganda, the only countries where cases have been confirmed so far. Neither have known Ebola exposure. Doctors Without Borders calling the outbreak deeply alarming, adding, never before has an Ebola outbreak recorded so many cases so soon after its declaration. Suspected cases now topping 1,000 and growing rapidly. Americans traveling from the DRC, South Sudan, and Uganda can only enter the U.S. through 4 airports. Medical student Michael Ruprecht was working in Uganda when the outbreak began.
I obviously was really terrified and scared when I heard about it.
Michael's flight home to Michigan was rerouted to Dulles International Airport in Virginia for a CDC and DHS mandated screening.
The screening section was sort of like this makeshift camp. They had these tarps pulled up, and it was sort of these mini doctor's offices. The first thing they did was check my temperature. And then after my temperature came back normal, they asked me a series of questions.
Now, Michael was eventually allowed to return home to Detroit. Meanwhile, health experts warn that Ebola symptoms actually mirror those of many other illnesses. So just because you get tested for Ebola does not necessarily mean that the results will come back positive. In fact, that's exactly what happened last week with suspected cases in Europe and India. There turned out, Mary, to be false alarms.
So the border checks and airport screenings are underway, but Americans have every reason to doubt the same bureaucrats who failed you before. Next, you'll hear the backlash from people who say the fear machine is back in business and old pandemic scripts are being recycled again. So why are ticket sales down? We're using the old trauma scripts because hantavirus didn't work. It's a distraction. Must be careful because these psychopaths will go to any lengths to create a plandemic, says Gordon Master. So, are you wondering why Billy Gates, Fauci, and Tedros are always telling us there's most certainly going to be another pandemic? They don't care if they have to make one up. They'll have one. Remember, they've been pushing monkeypox, hantavirus, Ebola, and Billy's wood ticks. And that's the heart of it. Sovereignty, trust, and whether the public's being managed instead of informed. Next, one more reason people are calling out the media double standard. CNN reporting from the Congo during an alleged Ebola outbreak with not a mask in sight.
You see when you arrive, stop Ebola, and then the next thing they wanted you to do, of course, wash your hands.
We have just arrived in Bunia, the capital of Ituri province, and this province has already recorded over 1,000 suspected cases of the deadly Ebola virus since mid-May. Getting here is not easy. We start our journey early, more than 1,000 miles away in the capital Kinshasa, where we catch a ride on a UN aid flight. Our bags are checked and weighed and checked again. There's more hand sanitizer before we finally board.
So we're pushing back now on this UN flight bound for Bunia in Ituri province, which is the epicenter of this Ebola outbreak.
Also on our flight is the Director General of the World Health Organization.
Are you worried that this could spread to the level that we saw in 2014?
It depends on how we respond. If we move fast, and we're asking the international community to move fast in terms of funding and others, we can stop it. And the government can stop it, communities can stop it. So it depends. If we don't take it seriously, of course it can outsmart us.
As he leaves the plane, a gaggle of press surround him. Everyone here is looking for answers.
That is CNN. Not a mask in sight. So what this really means, it's bigger than Congo, bigger than Brazil, bigger than one scary headline. The post-COVID world no longer gives global health bureaucracies the benefit of the doubt. If hospitals are overwhelmed, if test results are delayed, if the vaccine toolbox is limited, and if officials can't communicate clearly, then fear fills the gap. That's why this matters to America. President Trump's administration's pushed a far more skeptical America First posture towards failed international consensus thinking. In moments like this, show why. See, competence matters. Borders matter. Honest risk communication matters. And the real crisis is not just whether Ebola is dangerous. We already know it is. The real crisis is whether the people claiming to manage these threats are still capable of staying ahead of them. So tonight, the takeaway is rather simple. Watch the response, not just the virus. Watch the hospital conditions. Watch the testing lag. Watch the travel monitoring. Watch whether officials tell the truth quickly, clearly, and without the spin that destroyed trust during the former Biden years and the wider public health establishment's COVID failures. Americans are not crazy for asking questions anymore. They're awake, and they should be. At the same time, there's a difference between healthy skepticism and blind panic. So stay sharp, stay informed, demand facts. Remember, when systems look weak overseas, the United States must stay strong at home. Protect the border, protect travelers, and protect the American people first. And if you believe the real story here is whether the global response system is failing under pressure, share this report right now. Comment below with a yes or no. Do you trust the international health system to contain this outbreak if it gets worse? If you haven't already, subscribe to the Next News Network for more reports the corporate media will not give you straight. But make sure you text those two words you see on your screen right there, raw feed, to 844-840-4963. Join the thousands of patriots who are already bypassing the algorithm and getting direct updates from me to their phone. And I want you to celebrate America 250 with us. Check out the merch shelf below this video and pick out something you like, and let's celebrate together.
The system controls information. Information control is power. They don't want you to see this. The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.